The morning felt heavier than usual, like the world had forgotten how to breathe. News travels fast online, but that morning, disbelief moved faster. Across timelines and group chats, one name kept appearing like an echo that refused to fade. Emman Atienza. Only 19. Gone too soon. For thousands who'd watched her laugh through the screen, who'd listened to her late-night words about hope and healing, it didn't seem possible. How could someone who carried so much light suddenly disappear? The internet didn't just react, it froze. Because behind every post, every smile, and every perfectly imperfect caption, there was a story no one saw coming. Within hours, timelines transformed into candlelight vigils. Photos of Emmen smiling beneath soft sunlight flooded feeds, each one paired with a caption that tried, and failed, to make sense of it all. Her classmates shared videos from school festivals, laughing in disbelief between tears. Friends posted old screenshots, messages that suddenly felt sacred. The hashtags #FlyHighEmmen and Remember Emmen spread like quiet prayers, lighting up the digital world with heartbreak. On TikTok, edits of her laughing, dancing, and talking about kindness began trending, each clip ending in silence, the kind that says more than words ever could. People who had never met her wrote as if they'd lost someone close. "She made me feel seen without even knowing me," one comment read, collecting thousands of hearts. Others asked the same haunting question, why her? How could someone who spent her time reminding others they mattered feel like she didn't? The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the internet united in shared grief, not just mourning a young creator, but realizing how fragile the light we love online can really be. Before her name became a headline, she was simply Emmen, the girl who filled empty spaces on the internet with light. Her laugh had this contagious warmth, the kind that made even the worst days feel softer. She didn't try to be perfect, she just tried to be real. That was her secret. Her posts weren't about angles or filters, they were about feeling. She'd talk about overthinking, about being tired but grateful, about finding joy in the smallest, quietest things. One day she'd post a messy mirror selfie. The next, she'd be sitting cross-legged on her bed, talking about kindness and how the world needed more of it. People loved that about her. The honesty, the ease. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was trying to connect. When she said, "You don't have to be okay all the time," it sounded less like advice and more like comfort. Her followers used to write that her videos felt like a late-night talk with someone who just gets it. She had that rare mix of humor and heart, joking one second, sharing something deeply personal the next. But sometimes, in between the laughter, there were pauses. Long captions about burnout, the kind you scroll past too fast to realize how heavy they are. She'd laugh it off. "I'm fine, just tired." But maybe that was the part of her nobody really saw, the quiet struggle beneath the sunshine. The kind of sadness that hides behind smiles because it doesn't want to bother anyone. And looking back now, it's that contrast, that fragile balance between light and loneliness, that makes her story hit even harder. Eventually, the rumors gave way to reality. Official reports confirmed what no one wanted to believe, that Emmen had quietly lost her long private battle with depression. Those words alone felt heavier than anything her fans had ever read. It wasn't just the loss of someone young and full of promise, it was the realization that even the people who give light can sometimes be fighting the darkest storms inside. For hours, social media was silent, not because people stopped caring, but because they didn't know what to say. Some stared at her old posts, wondering how they'd missed the signs, the captions about exhaustion, the quiet tone in her last live stream. "She told us to be kind," one fan wrote, "but maybe we should have told her she didn't have to be strong all the time." That comment alone collected thousands of likes, not because it was clever, but because it was true. Across the internet, people began reflecting, not just on Emmen's passing, but on the way we look at each other online. The pressure to smile, the fear of slowing down, the silence that hides behind a cheerful post. Fans realized that sometimes the people who comfort everyone else are the ones who need it most. It was a truth no one wanted to face, but one the world could no longer ignore. The confirmation didn't come first from headlines. It came from a mother's trembling hands. On a quiet Friday morning, Emmen's mother shared a message that stopped the scrolling world in its tracks. "It's with deep sadness that we share the unexpected passing of our daughter and sister, Emmen," she wrote. "She brought so much joy, laughter, and love into our lives, and into the lives of everyone who knew her. It wasn't polished. It wasn't written for attention. It was raw. A mother's voice breaking through the noise, full of grief and love at once." For a moment, the internet grew still. Even those who didn't know Emmen personally felt that ache. Because in her mother's words, people heard what no headline could capture: the sound of a family trying to breathe through heartbreak. Instead of speculation, what followed was compassion. Comments poured in, not with questions, but with candles, prayers, and simple words like, "Thank you for sharing her with us." Fellow creators shared photos, recalling how Emmen's laughter could light up a set. Celebrities posted messages of comfort to her family, many admitting they'd quietly followed her for years. And through it all, there was no drama, no noise, only empathy. The internet, for once, felt united in silence, learning what it meant to grieve together with dignity. Through it all, one person remained completely silent: her father, Emman Atienza, a man known for his warmth, his steady voice, and the kind of optimism that could fill a room. For days, his social media stayed untouched. No statement, no words, no press appearance. Just silence. But that silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. It was the sound of a father trying to carry an unimaginable loss with grace. Those who knew him said he'd always believed in strength through faith and quiet resilience. And when he finally appeared, not in a post, but in a single photo of him holding a candle at dusk, the world understood. No captions, no hashtags, just light. Within minutes, that image was shared thousands of times. One fan wrote, "You taught us how to be strong on TV, but we're praying you never have to be this strong again." Another said, "You've given us wisdom for years. Now it's our turn to send it back." It wasn't sympathy. It was solidarity. The kind that doesn't ask for words, only presence. Across the Philippines and beyond, people lit candles, wrote messages, and held space for a grieving family whose pain had become the nation's own. In his quiet, Kim reminded everyone that sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is to simply keep breathing, to hold on until the light slowly returns. In the weeks that followed, grief began to transform into something larger, something that looked a lot like hope. Across Manila, parks and school courtyards filled with soft light as hundreds gathered for candlelight vigils. Handwritten notes covered the steps of university chapels, each one carrying the same message: "Thank you for being real, Emmen." What began as mourning slowly became movement. Her followers organized mental health fundraisers, youth groups hosted open discussions, and entire classrooms turned her old posts into conversation starters about empathy and self-care. News outlets called it the Emmen effect, a sudden, heartfelt awakening among young people to talk about what hurts before it's too late. Her story was no longer just a tragedy. It had become a turning point. Mental health advocates across the Philippines credited her honesty for breaking silence in spaces that once treated vulnerability as weakness. And that ripple spread far beyond her home country. Creators from Los Angeles to Singapore posted tributes, dedicating videos to her memory. Each one ended with the same quiet promise: check on your friends, be gentle, speak up. Even influencers who'd never known her personally began to adopt her words, the simple reminders about kindness that had once filled her captions. In their own way, they carried her message forward, proving that light, when shared, doesn't fade. It multiplies. What started as heartbreak had become healing. Through thousands of voices, Emmen's story was still speaking. Not through sorrow, but through strength. Emmen's story isn't just about loss. It's about listening. It's about slowing down long enough to notice the quiet ones. The ones who smile through the noise. The ones who give light even when their own is flickering. She reminded, The world that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's proof that we're still human. That sometimes the smallest act of kindness, a text, a check-in, or even a simple, "Are you okay?" can make all the difference. If you or someone you know is struggling, please don't wait in silence. In the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline anytime, day or night. For viewers around the world, local hotlines and mental health resources are available in almost every country. Help is always closer than it feels. And sometimes the bravest words you'll ever say are just three simple ones. I need help. Emmen's legacy lives in every conversation she started, every heart she softened, and every person who now knows it's okay to speak up. She may be gone, but her message, that honesty heals, that love saves, that kindness still matters, continues to echo in millions of lives she touched. So if you're watching this, take a moment. Message a friend. Tell someone you love them. Leave a comment below with your words for Emmen, or for anyone who needs to be reminded that they matter. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for proof that kindness still exists. And maybe that proof can start with you. Because behind every headline, there's a heartbeat. And every heartbeat deserves to be heard.